This is the RMS Queen Mary, one of the greatest, most historic ships ever built. Come on board for epic history, tour highlights, and my own thoughts and experience. And of course, an abundance of views from the air. Welcome aboard. It's crazy to think that it has been about 30 years since I last visited the Queen Mary. I was a child, and I have almost no memory of it. Now, after 3 years of being closed, it is about time that I revisit this iconic ship. I would take 2 tours, the Glory Days tour and the Steam and Steel tour. I would get a Frappuccino from the coffee bar in between tours. But now, let me take you on the magnificent journey that is this ship's history. In 1929, the Cunard Line Ship Company desires to replace their aging fleet of ships, the Mauretania, the Aquitania, and Berengaria. In 1930, the shipbuilding firm of John Brown and Company of Clydebank, Scotland is selected as the builder. The project is known only as number 534. Work starts in June of 1931. But work on the ship gets halted in December of 1931 due to the Great Depression. Then the British government would make a loan toward the Cunard Line if they merged with the failing White Star Line. Hence, the new Cunard White Star Line was formed. In total, construction would be delayed for 2 years and 4 months. Then, on September 26, 1934, job number 534 is launched and named Queen Mary by Queen Mary. Once the ship is completed, King Edward VIII takes an inspection tour. John Brown Company conducts speed trials. On May 12th, the ship is officially transferred from the John Brown shipyard to the Cunard White Star Line. May 27th of 1936, the Queen Mary embarks on her maiden voyage from Southampton to Cherbourg, France, and then on to New York City. In New York City at 4:20 p.m. on June 1st. It crossed the Atlantic in 5 days, 5 hours, and 13 minutes. Queen Mary wins the blue ribbon for fastest crossing of the North Atlantic, beating the French lines in Normandy on her 6th round-trip voyage. In 1937, Normandy wins it back. In 1938, the Queen Mary sets a new world record and reclaims the blue ribbon, a title it would hold for the next 14 years. England enters World War II in 1939. In 1940, the Queen Mary takes on its wartime identity, the Grey Ghost. The ship's portholes are blacked out, and its exterior is painted gray. It is fitted as a troop ship and makes its first voyage as a troop transport. In 1943, the Grey Ghost carries the greatest amount of people on a floating vessel, 15,740 troops, 943 crew for a total of 16,683. The Queen Mary was so effective that Hitler offered the Iron Cross and the equivalent of $250,000 to any U-boat captain who could sink the Queen Mary. Victory over Europe occurs on May 7, 1945. Churchill himself says that the Queen Mary helped bring the war to a quicker end. The Queens challenged the theory of Hitlerism in the Battle of the Atlantic. Without their aid, the day of final victory must unquestionably have been postponed. Throughout 1946, the ship transports numerous war brides and children to the United States and Canada. It takes more than a year to return the Queen Mary to passenger service. 1947, the Queen Mary resumes passenger service. In 1949, the Cunard White Star merger ends, and Cunard takes full ownership of its company. After 14 years of holding the Blue Ribbon, the SS United States secures the Blue Ribbon with a voyage of 3 days and 12 hours. A title still held today. How's that for Made in America? In the 1960s, air travel rises in popularity, and the ocean liners start becoming obsolete. In 1963, the Queen Mary starts serving as a cruise ship. By 1966, Cunard announces that the Queen Mary is for sale. In 1967, the city of Long Beach, California purchases the Queen Mary, and the Queen Mary arrives in Long Beach on December 9th of 1967.
And the city of Long Beach was the highest bidder with a mere $3,450,000.
Now today marks the end of this ship, and this particular ceremony, it marks the end of this great vessel as a ship. She has finished sailing the oceans, and from henceforth she will become what technically and legally I think is called a building. But what a magnificent building she is going to be here in Long Beach.
The ship began its final 39-day voyage from Southampton, England to Long Beach because the Queen Mary was so large she could not pass through the Panama Canal. So therefore she had to travel around the coast of South America and Cape Horn. The Queen Mary arrived in Long Beach on December 9, 1967. Construction began on the ship to convert her from a passenger liner to a floating hotel and tourist attraction. The Queen Mary opened to the public in May of 1971. On April 15, 1993, the historical liner was added to the National Register of Historical Places.
So, that concludes our tour through time of the major historical highlights of the Queen Mary. Making this part of the video has really deepened my appreciation of and sense of connection with this ship. And I hope it has maybe given you a shred of that wonder, too. From here, we will be covering tour highlights, fun facts, and famous passengers. As I said before, I took the Glory Days tour and the Steam and Still tour. And the Glory Days tour featured some of the historic, magnificent rooms on the ship. Starting with the observation bar, which is located across the front of the ship and has sweeping views that can be beautiful or terrifying.
The observation bar was a popular gathering place during good weather because of the beautiful sweeping view of the bow. But in bad weather, no one would go inside because sometimes during rough weather, the bow of the ship could actually begin to plow down into the waves, down into the waves. You're going to hear me say that again.
It features a painting called The Royal Jubilee Week by Alfred R. Thompson. Next is the main lounge. Passengers would come to socialize, listen to music, or dance. The theme of this room is music, as embodied by etchings around the mirrors near the fireplaces and the bronze relief entitled Symphony by Maurice Lambert. And the main lounge could also be used as a first-class cinema. The next stop is the first-class smoking lounge, which has a real fireplace. Most of the fireplaces on this ship are for decoration only. The smoke from this room can travel up and out of the smokestack. Unfortunately, my two favorite areas that I know about from videos weren't on the tour. First, the Grand Salon, also known as the first-class dining area. It is the largest room on board the ship, and the largest room ever built on any ship as of 2020. It is 3 decks high, occupying the entire width of the ship at 108 feet. It could seat all 815 first-class passengers at once. And the main reason I am interested in this room is because it is home to the world-class Sunday brunch, a brunch I have been wanting to do for multiple years now. And it is supposed to return in midsummer 2023. I can't wait. And then the hotel lobby, also referred to as Piccadilly Circus. Once this area held historic shops used by first-class passengers. Currently, it has the appealing Portside Marketplace and Center Line Boutique. I couldn't see these this time, but there's always next time. Next is the Steam and Steel Tour. Although at the bottom of the boat, much of the information went over my head. But I did pick up some fun facts. Like the propellers weigh 35 tons and are 20 feet in diameter. And each anchor is 18 feet high and weighs 16 tons. And the anchor chain links are 2 feet and weigh 224 pounds. This tour passed through some cool new exhibits, which weren't open yet. More to come back for. Famous people to board the Queen Mary include Bob Hope, Gloria Swanson, Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby, Audrey Hepburn, Elizabeth Taylor, Clark Gable, and Walt Disney. Of course, English Prime Minister Winston Churchill made at least 3 trips during World War II. He considered the Queen Mary his headquarters at sea, and he signed the D-Day Declaration on board. Also, Edward VIII, remember from his inspection tour, Queen Elizabeth, and Jackie Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. Here are some more fun facts and stats. The Queen Mary is 1,019 feet long and 180 feet high. It has a cruising speed of 28 knots, around 32 miles per hour, and a max speed of 32 knots, about 36 miles per hour. After the Queen Mary came to Long Beach, it passed between multiple owner-operators throughout the years, including the Walt Disney Company from 1988 to 1992. The old Spruce Goose Dome is currently the Long Beach Cruise Terminal. The Queen Mary too greeted the Queen Mary in 2006. Next to the Queen Mary is a decommissioned 1970s and 1980s era Soviet submarine, a B-427. Its hull was ruptured back in 2015, so there are no tours. And its owner has also been a mystery in recent years. Oh yeah, the Queen Mary is called the Ship of Beautiful Woods. Of course, I didn't forget. I stopped at the gift shop. And I tried to appear exciting for the camera. Also, I went to Long Beach for the 4th of July in 2022, and it is one of the best spots to view fireworks in Southern California. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you are still here, you probably did, or someone forced you to watch. Guess what the word of the day is? Subscribe.